Wipes. For some people, it's what makes extraction shooters fun, and it's the only way to deal with the unavoidable, game-breaking issues that come from the gameplay loop. But for others, it's a non-starter that gatekeeps them from playing the game within the limited time they have by constantly resetting their progress. Arc Raiders, who looks like it's a contender for the Game of the Year, is breaking the mold by not having wipes. So the question remains, what can they do to combat the issues that will become serious problems without them? Well, let's get into it. The extraction shooter genre has always had its fair share of problems. Harsh mechanics making it hard to garner mainstream appeal, hackers, an overly saturated milsim space, titles trying to be way too specialized for their own good, and poser titles that are just slapping on an extraction mechanic into another genre. Recently, however, developers have finally started paying attention to what these games need in order to be successful in this genre. Well, some better than others. But even the most successful extraction shooters out there have yet to find an answer to the issues that's keeping wipes around as a crutch: the endgame. Embark is trying to make Arc Raiders the most accessible extraction shooter to date, and they won't be having wipes. Almost every extraction shooter has relied on wipes to fix two problems, and Embark needs to solve these because they're not insignificant. Problem number one is the most obvious and is often referred to as gear inflation. The problem in extraction shooters is that after enough time has passed, everyone, and I mean everyone, has had enough time to gather gear and resources to undercut the genre's main appeal: risk, tension, and scarcity. When you no longer have to worry about these things, the main appeal of the game goes away. And then as a player who's collected more gear than you'll ever need, you're left wondering, what now? This issue is fairly straightforward. The second problem is less obvious, but it is important nonetheless. I will refer to this problem as the murder hobo problem. In a short amount of time, the more dedicated portion of the player base will finish the story and mission progress, or in some cases not even bother getting that far, and then just start dropping into the match looking to push and fight other players. Now, there's nothing wrong with PvP, I love it, but that's not the point. These players want to keep playing the game that they enjoy, but they're no longer given the incentives to interact with the content the game itself provides, and so they create their own. Effectively, they're bored. That boredom is both an opportunity and a problem, not just for them, but the game as a whole. This portion of the player base represents the most skillful, successful, and passionate portion of the community, releasing them into the general population to be nothing more than a murder hobo player-seeking missile will have an inorganic, crushing effect on everyone else still trying to engage with the game's systems. One of the things that keeps engagements fresh in an extraction shooter is the variability and unpredictable nature of where and how they happen. This is fueled by a combination of spawn point locations, staggered spawns, and different quest/loot table locations. This creates vast possibilities in player pathing, which creates unique and organic firefights. This murder hobo effect hurts new player growth and retention, but it also hurts the higher end players themselves. After all, they can only do this for so long before they themselves lose interest. Combining the two issues will speed up this process. This would be unfortunate, as it would be squandering what I think is a great opportunity to leverage your most passionate and dedicated player population for the benefit of the game as a whole. Traditionally, many games within the genre have used wipes as a crutch, but this really only kicks the can down the road.
That was a problem for future me, and now I am future me, and this sucks.
While wipes have been commonplace in extraction shooters, they are not the norm outside of the genre, with the exception of survival titles. Extraction shooters, for a variety of reasons, have always had a niche appeal, so when Arc Raiders is trying to make a more accessible title, they can't just appeal to the players that are already dedicated to playing them. Because here's the honest truth, despite wipes holding big problems at bay, they represent a huge hurdle for player acquisition. Take your average gamer who doesn't currently play an extraction shooter and plays for about an hour a day. Somehow, you've convinced them to try an extraction shooter out. Statistically, they have not started to play at the beginning of a wipe. If they don't get frustrated and quit, because, well, extraction shooters often invoke that kind of feeling, they'll seek out guidance. And one of the most common things they'll hear is, effectively, to come back at the beginning of a wipe. This presents a huge problem. You've somehow convinced them to play a game where they lose gear when they die. not just what they've picked up, but what they brought in with them. So there's a very real chance they can go negative within the given time they have to play every night. Now that's already a big hurdle to overcome, but the good news is, at least you've got them to consider it, their foot's in the door. But now, they're also being told that they will have their progress wiped before they likely get the chance to work through all the content, even if they had the time to dedicate to it, let alone with their more modest gaming schedule. All due to no fault of their own.
Not a great plan.
All of this is a very hard sell to an average gamer, and many extraction shooters have lost players before they've started because of it. That number isn't exactly measurable, but given all of the admittedly anecdotal experiences I've had, and what I've heard from others, that number is probably a lot more than many diehard extraction shooter fans are willing to admit. So what do you do about these seemingly unavoidable problems, appeal to the average gamer, and still retain the edge that makes extraction shooters appealing in the first place? Some have suggested voluntary methods like self-wipes in the form of a prestige system. However, I am skeptical if sufficient motivation could be created for players to voluntarily wipe on their own in the numbers it would take to meaningfully tackle these issues. It could be used in combination with other methods, but as a singular solution, I find it lacking and I don't think it will do the job. I think the solution to the murder hobo problem also has the ability to address gear inflation. Clans or guilds. I personally think clans or guilds are the future of the extraction shooter genre if developers want a more meaningful answer to replacing broad, involuntary wipes. But before we get into that, if you're still here, you're probably enjoying the video. I'd like to invite you to hit that subscribe and notification button. If you're hyped about Arc Raiders, I'll be putting out consistent content for it, and if you're into deeper gameplay discussions like this, we have a regular podcast where myself and other creators discuss various topics surrounding Arc Raiders. Thanks for your consideration, and now back to the video. Clans or guilds can leverage high-level players' tendencies to want higher risk/reward engagements into a system designed to siphon gear out of circulation. That's the short version. The longer version will take some time to explain on how it makes it also engaging for everybody else. It's no secret that gamers play games more often, for longer, and over longer lifespans if their friends play the game as well.
I am shocked! Shocked! Well, not that shocked.
With this in mind, all of the previously mentioned issues leveraging the advanced player portion of your player base needs and wants to engage in PvP is the key. You need to have 3 goals in mind. The first thing you need is to create a mechanic that incentivizes players to socialize with one another and create organizations that can help foster the shared passion people have for the game. The second thing that needs to happen is you need a space where advanced players will engage in PvP that is separated from the general public. The incentives need to be significant and non-economic in nature. This way they won't be brought back to the general lobbies. Then add a few systems that help remove gear from circulation at higher than normal rates. And the third thing that needs to happen is you need to create incentives that make these players want to reach out and connect with the general community in a positive fashion, especially newer players. Okay, so what does all that look like? Oh, I'm sure you guys can come up with all kinds of cool ideas that I would never think of. Leave them down in the comments because I'd love to read them. And while I wait for all those great ideas, here's my pitch for anyone who cares, and bear in mind, this is just an idea. Lots of things can change and be tweaked. I've had this idea for some time now, but now that I can actually talk about Arc Raiders, I can be more specific to that game's systems. I call the idea Warlords.
Thank you, but I prefer it my way.
For the sake of simplicity, this idea has been broken down into 3 sections: the infrastructure, the economy, and the raids themselves. I would like to start off with the idea that having seasons and wipes for just the clans is significantly different than wiping everyone who's playing the game. You're not wiping players' inventories or resetting their progress, just the clans. Players who are invested in the game enough to participate in these systems are at way less risk of being lost than newer players like I mentioned before, so keep in mind that clan events and activities will be seasonal, effectively letting Arc Raiders have its cake and eat it too. With that out of the way, this is the nuts and bolts organizational aspect of the clan system. The clan would have its own organizational tools such as rosters, roles, permissions, public boards for recruitment, its own XP, its own missions, maybe even its own skill tree. Members would earn XP for their clan, as well as having multiple ways to contribute to the clan outside of just being a gun for hire. The hows really aren't that important, it's not glamorous, and largely is just giving player groups organizational tools to let them make their group their own. But there would be various mechanisms for players of various interests, activity schedules, and skill levels to be able to contribute to the clan's overall success. And I can hear you right now. Gecko,
What the fuck is this?
how does this address removing wipes? Well, that brings me to the economy. Now, I've got a feeling I need to break this down Barney style in order to get my point across, so I busted out the crayons. The clan stash is the only place from which you can create a loadout to attempt clan activities, and when coming back from clan activities, your loot will be deposited directly into it. One of the goals of the clan system is to remove more gear from the general circulation than it adds. For this reason, any gear, loot, or item placed in the clan stash can no longer be used in general lobbies. And for that same reason, clan rewards given to members will be of non-economic in nature. Skins, gamer cards, tags, emotes, etc. Now, during the season, clan XP will level up your clan, which will unlock features and expand existing ones. Again, the exact hows are not important. The goals are to give motivations to participate in the system, balance it for clans of all sizes, while encouraging actions to funnel gear out of general circulation. For example, scrapping high-level gear directly for clan XP. And this would be a good opportunity to incentivize limited voluntary wipe systems. Completing missions is one of the ways members help level up their clan, so members that have already completed all of the missions would be heavily incentivized to self-wipe at the beginning of each clan season. These are the members with the most gear, so for the biggest impact against gear inflation, they're the ideal stashes to empty. And finally, this brings me to the clan raids. These raids need to be aimed at having escalated PvP. It needs to attract the diehards while also giving a place for groups that have outgrown the general lobbies a place to push themselves. Now, there are several ways you can escalate the combat itself. There are some basic ideas and some more adventurous ones. Now, we can add all kinds of cool ways for you to fight, but we need to have reasons for you to actually go out of your way to enter the riskier situation. So we need to add heavy incentives. Ideally, you'd create a specific map for this, but Arc Raiders already has different time-sensitive modes like Night Raids and Harvester/Queen variants. They can easily create a clan battle variant that alternates which map they are being fought on. This map or mode would be centered around vault-like locations. These vaults represent the main form of clan loot that is different from normal lobbies, and I'll get into how in just a second. But these vaults would need keys to open, keys that can be disseminated however the devs deem fit for the sake of engagement. How isn't really important. The idea is that the vaults are not spammable, and being able to open them should encourage considerable effort on the part of the group's preparation and gear. For Arc Raiders' current maps, you can easily limit it to specific key rooms that already exist, but create clan key variants that are only able to be used on the maps with a clan battle mode enabled. This way, you would not need to alter the maps themselves. Once activated, the vault sets off an alarm that attracts some PvE elements, but it's mostly there to let everyone know within listening range that the vault is being opened. Okay, now that we have the honeypot, let's crank up the heat. Another change for this map/mode is that you can increase the group size limit. Simply adding 1 or 2 players to the group size will have a dramatic effect on how combat plays out. Player groups will seek out additional members and even bring in players that they normally wouldn't group up with for simply adding an extra body to the gunfight. More bodies, more loot, more guns, more chaos. And speaking of guns, the next addition would be the use of escalated weaponry, specifically crew-served weapons. Now, Arc Raiders already has the framework for this. It doesn't even need to be just weapons either. It could be a placeable photoelectric cloak that covers a wide area, an anti-projectile trophy system, a shield recharging station, etc. Embark can be a little more creative since these systems won't make it to the general lobbies. You can create small events to test them, and if they have unplanned harmful effects, they can just be removed and refined. But if some of them can be balanced accordingly, maybe they would even make it available to the general lobbies, even if it's at a scaled down version. This allows for more elaborate PvE engagements. Given that you have up to 5 highly equipped members, normal levels wouldn't discourage them from venturing to places without much of a fuss. For example, instead of 1 Rocketeer, have them patrol in pairs. This would be needed to match the escalated PvP so that PvE remains a balancing threat. The last big addition would need a specific map for. You'd make it large, and you'd make it with the intention of using vehicles. Yes, vehicles. Clans would have garages to house the vehicles they own, manage repairs, and even have to extract with them. Now, for the sake of keeping this video from being an hour long, I won't go too far into the weeds with this. However, the way I envision it is that lower level clans can invest in more crew served weapons and lighter vehicles until they have the means to regularly deploy medium chassis or simply more light tools. The idea is that if they initiate the vault opening, they would have access to the tools needed to be effective in a defensive position or an ambush, while more successful higher level clans are encouraged to splurge on more blunt force options. They would obviously be more risky to deploy and harder to maintain. Bear in mind, vehicles need to be extracted, including ones you didn't bring in. So you can add things to consider like fuel, hijacking tools, destructible portions of the vehicle that don't destroy it entirely but prevent it from being extracted unless repaired, and with that in mind, repair kits. The loot found in the vault would primarily be centered around unlocking, building, upgrading, and repairing vehicles and the clan's HQs for upgrades and features. The clan's crafting system would allow for options that centered around these things, as well as new weaponry to deal with said vehicles. Now, for individuals who are not interested in these types of organizations, you can create a contractor clan, which would essentially be a one-person clan. Finding some way of including them into the picture would be beneficial for a variety of reasons. Creating a mechanic to have makeshift groups would open the door for alliances for sure, but it would be hugely beneficial for individuals or friend groups to be able to participate without needing to fully invest like others would. The bottom line, I believe these kinds of systems would add a lot of longevity to the game while addressing some of the main issues that broad involuntary wipes used to be just a crutch for. They escalate the fun gameplay loop without changing it. And here's the good news. Arc Raiders already has a lot of the needed mechanics to implement most of these systems. Maybe not all of them, but certainly enough to make adding them a whole lot easier. But what do you think? Let me know down in the comments. Like and subscribe, Twitch and Discord links down below. Thanks so much for watching till the end, and good hunting.